Hey, Freq Radio listeners, it's summertime, and up here in the Northern Hemisphere, things are pretty hot. Why not soothe your weary minds by dipping into the Patreon community, where all the cool Freakers hang out? You get early access to new episodes, bonus tomfoolery from me, Carolyn, and Anita, merch discounts, listener polls, and the occasional surprise treat. You'll also get the chance to pat yourself on the back for supporting feminist pop culture analysis. If you want to be part of transforming the entertainment landscape, then support like yours is crucial to making sure that progressive voices are heard and challenging criticism finds a platform. Head on over to patreon.com/femfreak and sign up at any level to show your commitment to being critical of the media you love.
The guy who plays Shane says that there's no absolute villain or hero. And I was like, go fuck yourself, dude. Welcome to Feminist Frequency Radio, where we are mega heart fans.
This is
the show that asks you to be critical of the media you love. I'm Anita Sarkeesian, and I'm joined today by a woman who just wants to get her massages in peace, Ebony Adams.
If someone were to Photoshop Anita and I onto Ann and Nancy Wilson, I would not hate that. And then send it to me at Ebony Aster.
I mean, you are the queen of photoshopping faces onto
I know, but I want
bodies.
this one to be good. So, and you know what? I mean, clearly, well, I'm not going to say clearly who should be who. You just mix it up, decide for yourself. And then
let us know. Yeah, we want to know what you think. Right. Mm-hmm. Joining us to recline on beach chairs and sip white wine is writer and video game designer Teddy Dief. What's up, Teddy?
Hi, I'm on podcast.
You are. On today's episode, all right, everybody who listens to this podcast already knows that Ebony writes all the scripts and then I don't read them before I have to say them out loud, and then she puts these things in. I'm going to read it verbatim. Are you ready?
Yeah.
On today's episode, I finally get to talk about a show I absolutely loved, White Lotus on HBO. Stay tuned. That's a lie.
Anita, it's okay. Listen, I know that your bread and butter is pretending like you're too cool for school, but you loved White Lotus. Every week you're like, I can't wait to talk about White Lotus. I loved the characters. I loved the storyline. When did we get to talk about White Lotus?
Yeah, that's me. I was like that.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, more importantly, what's up, Teddy?
Nothing much is up. I'm working on things and sitting in air conditioning, so I can't complain.
You are a video game designer and creative director and singer.
These are all true.
Yeah. So you made a game called Hyper Light Drifter that people liked. And now you're making a game.
Yeah, I'm making a game called We Are OFK, which is sort of like a music biopic about the band OFK, which we also made for the purposes of this. So.
There are a lot of layers to it. It's very cool.
It's just those two, but it feels weird to people, and I understand that. So like we're just trying to like simmer with the band, and the series is coming out soon is what I'm supposed to say. So I'm just in that part of finishing something that's anyone who makes video games or big projects or any project knows is the worst part, because finishing is hard.
Finishing is hard. Oh, it's so hard. Let's have you back on when the game comes out.
Sure.
Great.
I would love that.
I'm all about scheduling guests ahead of time.
She's so good
in
at
like
it.
2 years.
Give me that. Soon. That'll make a great deadline. So we actually have to finish it on time. I mean, I have deadlines, but.
All right. You heard it here, folks. This video game is going to be done in the next 2 years.
You know, honestly, of all the horrible things, like something that the pandemic took away from us is deadlines in indie games, because like I don't have deadlines. Like we just have our own company, and obviously we have to be prompt and quick. But it used to be that we would have to go to things like PAX and events and stuff. We would commit to it and be like, yeah, totally. We'll like make a build. We totally have that. And we'll bring it and show it off. And you never do.
You don't.
That's deadlines is like just shame-based commitment. So love to bring that
shame-based
back.
Commitment. That's so good. I feel that in my soul. I mean, you could run out of money, but there aren't like progress deadlines aren't the same. Because you could just be like, I know you're not working with a publisher right now, I don't think, but you know, you could just be like, sorry, missed the milestone, COVID, what?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, we work with Kowloon Nights, who's like a fund, but yeah, they don't really control how we use the money, so we've just been reporting back. But there is a lot of that. It's like, COVID's hard, and they're like, yeah.
Yeah. I know some of the game companies that I'm working with right now are just like, on hiatus or taking longer breaks or just taking longer to get things done. And that is fair because we are still living in a pandemic. There's a fucking hurricane happening. There's a war going on around the world, but horrific things happening in Afghanistan. And it's a lot of bad stuff. So, be easy on your souls.
We took like a hard stance or the opposite of a hard stance where if anyone on the team was just like, hey, there's some shit happening this week and I can't deal with it. Or like the internet is a bad place or I'm tired or I'm scared. It's like, yep, you're not working today.
Right.
That's just what it is.
Love that.
More of that, please.
Yeah. Well, what's going on with you, Ebony?
Not much. Spent some time in my apartment pool this weekend. Putting the final layer on my summer brown. Was very happy to have achieved that. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Why don't you invite me to your pool?
I have invited you to my pool.
That's true. But then when I followed up to actually come to your pool, it was like nothing, like no response at all.
I don't recall.
I got receipts, baby. I'm going to send me those receipts.
Send me those receipts.
Because what I'll tell you about it. Nobody. I mean, some people care. I'm going to take swim lessons, but I need somewhere to practice. So I'm like, hey, Ebony, let me practice.
Yeah, I remember this conversation because I was like, yeah, but it's an apartment pool. So just so you know, like, it's not kind of pool you can do laps in, going from side to side. Like if you're just learning, it's probably a good size because you won't drown.
Exactly. That's what I want. I don't want to drown.
I don't want you to drown.
That's my goal. That's my goal in life. My entire goal
is not drowning.
Is not to drown.
You live awfully close to the ocean, but you're doing a great job.
I'm doing such a good job of not drowning.
And she goes to the ocean every weekend because she's
with Teddy. Teddy's my ocean buddy.
Yeah, Ocean.
Are you the one who took her out surfing?
Well, I feel like she took me out surfing, but I went.
See, so for someone who doesn't want to drown, you spend a lot of time in deep water.
And I went surfing yesterday too. I love it. Yeah. I'm about to buy a board. I'm so into this life.
You know what helped you not drown? Not going into the ocean.
Whatever, I'm going to do it. My body's covered in bruises. It's fine. Everything's fine.
My job as a surf supporting friend is to buy a tent and hide from the sun on the beach.
Same.
I love it. Yeah, we've got a real good beach setup. We have a whole canopy, folding chairs. You got to come. Nobody. I'm sorry. This is so like just friends talking now. This isn't podcast material. Sorry, everybody.
As opposed to our usual hard hitting. Podcast
usually there's like some interesting integration. There's not like the logistics of coming to the beach with us.
No.
The ocean. What's its angle?
Oh. All right. Let's talk about this show that Ebony absolutely adored.
Oh, can't wait for Anita to talk about how much she loved this show.
White Lotus is the latest offering from writer, actor, and director Mike White, known for School of Rock, Enlightened, or The Good Girl. It's a deeply polarizing and dark comic study of the guests and staff of a tropical resort in Hawaii. Everyone is terrible in fascinating ways, in the manner of rich white people who have perfected the art of making other people suffer while being deeply unhappy themselves. We're going to get into our feelings about the show, but the main thing you need to know is that here at Feminist Frequency, we will always support the work of Miss Jennifer Coolidge, no matter what.
That is accurate.
Great. I love when you put words into my mouth. Okay,
listen, at any point before recording, you could take a dip into these scripts and be like,
and I
nope,
don't,
not
so
saying
it's fine.
that. Exactly.
Yep. And then we start recording, and this is
and
what
you're like, what?
Carolyn. I feel like Carolyn left, and it's just. It was already a little downhill, and we're just like, it's deep nosedive. Anyways,
shaky.
Okay, Teddy, I asked you to come on this episode because you know something about these people.
I sure do.
Tell us your relationship to these kinds of people.
So rich white people who go on vacation.
Yeah.
I there was not a character on the show that I wasn't like I've met. I mean, they all felt kind of like caricatures of those people, but not, not that far from caricature, not that far from reality, rather. So, we'll get into like the show of it and how it's executed. But in terms of the characters, I was like, oh, this person is like, if you took, should I talk about my family? This
probably
is like,
not. You don't need
probably
to.
Not. Like, this family member I know, but like amped up, 500%.
Sure.
But still pretty accurate.
Yeah.
So you're coming at this from the perspective of knowing people in your own life, like the guests, as opposed to being someone who was like staff at the resort.
Yeah, it really snuck up on me because I've worked really hard to not get like in family vacations for a long time, and then but by accident I just got pulled into one by watching this show. So
yeah. I don't know where to begin. Ebony, what did you think of the show?
I thought that there were parts of this show that I laughed so hard at. Like, I think some of the comedy is absolutely pitch perfect. And I mean, regardless of whether like you hate the actual characters, can we at least acknowledge that the actors here are working they are acting their asses off playing these horrible people. Jake Lacey as Shane is so appalling a person, but he does such an incredible job, playing that kind of like grown up frat boy, just like Oakley sunglasses wearing, leather loafer, like he's so good at it. It gave me like a visceral response because I was like, I went to college with so many guys like you.
If he was from the UK, he'd be wearing red pants.
Absolutely.
Red trousers.
Look at my fucking red trousers. That's right. I mean, Connie Britton, so good. Steve Zahn, always happy when that guy's get work. Natasha Rothwell, so good. So, I mean, at the same time that I was like really loving the performances, yeah, I can see it is a hard show to watch, especially if you binge it like I had to because I was watching it, all in a row because the people are just disgusting. They're disgusting people. They're horrible. You wouldn't want to spend 2 minutes with these people, especially if you were in the position of having to cater to their every whim.
A minor
as the staff
acting,
does.
that's such a minor acting kudos that you're making me think about now that I didn't even realize is Shane's character is so unbearable. And those times where you're like, he's going to fucking raise his eyebrows again. And then he does. And you're like, you asshole. And then Molly Shannon comes in like mid-show as his mom. And I'm like, oh, fuck, she does the same thing.
Yes.
Like, which I'm sure was a really
cool.
smart choice to like, she does these like really meaningful, painful, horrible eyebrow raises as responses.
God.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. That's great.
Yeah.
That's delightful. Okay. This show should have been a movie, is my opinion. Like, it has interesting things to say, but it's just, I do not like shows where I hate everybody. I don't like them. It's really, and you don't hate everybody. Like Natasha Rothwell's character was great, but you feel so pained for her. And well, whatever. And so I feel like it could have been a movie and still gotten the point across that it was trying to get across and not dragged it out for episode after episode after episode. Cause I was getting really like, oh my God, I cannot be around these people anymore. Like it's painful. And near one of the latter episodes, there's a whole conversation that happens at the family's table where they go into it, right? They talk about like, what do they talk about? Should I feel guilty because I have money? Should I not go on vacation? Like just all of the like rich white people or just privileged white people talking points that happen. And I'm just like, I can't do this anymore. I can't be around you. Like it's so exhausting. I think there's some smart stuff that happens on the show and some interesting like dynamics, right? Like the daughter of the white people. I literally cannot remember a single person's name on the
Olivia,
show.
I think
Olivia's the friend, right? Oh, what's the friend's name?
Paula.
Paula. Okay, so Olivia, challenges her parents on their attitudes about, racism and privilege and those sorts of things. But I really liked that Paula was like, "You're just like them. Like, that you grew up in this, you align with them, even though you challenge them here and there, you're still one of them." I thought that was a really nice sort of twist and commentary.
I like that too. Something that felt, and tell me if you agree with this, is like when Olivia would challenge her parents, it felt like, she'd be like, "Oh, cringe," right? And I felt like she hadn't developed the language to properly, if it's even possible, to like educate them, or like to have a conversation with them. So it became this like really, everything was really static in those conversations. Like no one learned anything. And Paula like probably could have, but obviously was in a place to.
Absolutely. I mean, like Olivia's like rebellion against her parents is so surface level. It's so performative. The whole point for her is just to be a pain in the ass, and to sort of stake a position. But it's not a position that she feels deeply about. It's all something that she's choosing to do on that day and in the most annoying way possible, knowing that it's going to rub people the wrong way from the very beginning, right? And I think one of the smartest critiques or, reviews of the show that I read, especially the pilot, was in Vulture, where the writer was talking about how it's very easy as an audience member to fall into the trap of being as judgmental as Olivia is and as Paula herself is, at the very beginning, like when they're sitting around the pool or when they're on the boat coming and they're inventing all of these like bitchy backstories for everyone. Yeah. It's very easy to be like, fuck those two. Like they're being bitches. They're being terrible, right? It's very easy to fall into the trap of being as judgmental of everyone else on the show, but the show indicts you for doing that as an audience member. So you know how like at the pool, we see Olivia and Paula reading like Freud and Nietzsche and stuff. And you're like, give me a break, right? But then, and this is why it struck me is because the reviewer in this Vulture piece pointed out the same thing that I had just been laughing at. Then we see Shane reading Blink by Malcolm Gladwell. Mm-hmm. And I was like, of course, right? And I was like, oh, I'm doing precisely what Olivia and Paula do, But
is that a problem?
Yeah, I think it is. I think the show, one of the things the show does is, sort of indicate that like, there is no safe space. There's no safe distance rather. We are all by virtue of being in the position to watch this show, to be indulging in this kind of like narrative consumption as entertainment for enjoyment, we are perhaps not as different from these people as we would like to believe. I don't
like that.
I am not, it's an uncomfortable position to be in. I also don't think I agree with you on the fact that it would be better as a feature. I think part of, for me, the appeal of the show was that it was 6 grinding episodes where you just get like the accumulation of more and more ennui, like backstabbiness, like I needed those 6 hours, or rather I didn't need those 6 hours, but I don't think the same thing could have been accomplished over the course of 2 hours in a movie for me.
I wonder, okay, I have 2 thoughts.
Just 2?
Well, I have several, but
okay.
I don't know if I feel like I disagree with the statement that you said, not because it makes me uncomfortable, but because I don't actually agree with it, right? But that's something that I would have to investigate further in my own psyche. But I feel like the thing is that I bet if your family members or whoever, whatever, I don't mean to single you out, but the people who like are these people watching this show wouldn't think that they are those people. Like, I don't know if this show does anything useful. Because I think a number of them do. And I think it would occasion like a feeling of discomfort, but it would then fall over into like the endless navel gazing that the people on the show do. So it's like, oh, they're talking about people like me. Now I feel bad. And I need to go talk to my therapist about it. And I need to go decompress and engage in some self-care and whatever. And it's just like, I need to go to a resort.
There's no actual like skin in the game for these people. It is part of this like, mental masturbation that everyone, participates in on the show.
Yeah, I think that's I'm torn between like whether or not I liked it as a show. So, okay, come with me on a quick journey, which is that I realized halfway through the show, I was really fascinated with the opening credit sequence because like just as a director, anytime somebody can like just build an entire sequence out of filming fucking wallpaper, I'm like, teach me how to get so much footage out of this. And then I realized like halfway through, I was like, oh, this feels like the show. It's this tableau of wallpaper and you stare at it and it kind of changes. They do a little bit of that, like, oh, like the paint is bleeding or whatever, but like not that much. And you're staring so intently when you watch that sequence being like, what's changing? Is something changing? And it's not really changing. I'm like, oh, that's the show. And so in some ways I could see like, I felt like I wish this were a movie. And especially with the way it resolved or didn't, I was like, fuck, that was so much time I just spent watching. But maybe that's also part of at least the intent, I don't know if it lands, of being like, we're going to put you in this position where people don't change or this stuff doesn't change and make you stare at it for as long as we feel like we can get away with, which was
Yeah.
6 hours.
Well, and that's okay. The end. Fuck. So that's the thing is there is value. There is, I think there is something. So, okay. I still stand by what I said of like, the show doesn't really do anything substantial. But not that it's bad, just that it's not like changing hearts and minds in any substantial way. But I think there is value to the fact that like none of these characters change. Like, right? I think that that's really important. Like none of the like the white people. Sorry, the people of color are sort of like periphery. They're here to show us how bad the white people are. And so they don't change, and that's true. That feels true, right? It feels truthful. Okay, so the end. Spoilers.
Yes.
This is a spoiler cast anyways. The end was fucking infuriating. So first of all, did there need to be a murder? Was that just put in there to like add stakes? And then someone was like, oh, who dies? I was like, someone dies? And then they were like, oh, the beginning, they did the whole, and I was like, I completely forgot about that because I don't care about this fucking show. I was mad at how it ended because literally the gay guy dies. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? How is that? Why?
And nothing changes. That's kind of what, like, it's the gut punch of realizing that a guy like Shane can do something like that and nothing will change. Armand will be replaced at the spa, at the White Lotus, and life will go on, and there will be a new crop of, rich, dissatisfied white people coming up. But like life, yes, it is the people who, like the worker class, the marginalized, the oppressed, whatever, like as cliche as it sounds, ultimately we are all replaceable to the grinding machinery of like wealth and white supremacy. And of course, a guy like, Shane with his, hyper masculine fantasies. I wish I had a gun or a baseball bat, when he's talking about dealing with the jewel theory. Of course, a guy like that.
I'm just, but okay, yes, completely. And that's fine. I'm just bothered that like, it's the trope, the gay guy dies. Like the gay people, the queer people always die first, or the black person dies first, right? And whatever. But in this case, it's the queer guy. And I'm just like, are you serious? He's the one that dies. And what's also interesting, Armand is actually a very interesting character, I think, because he represents like the managerial class. So it's not, like if you look at like a 3-class structure of capitalism, that he like holds a lot of power, but not enough power. And he like, so watching him navigate that power structure and like push against it and repel and like be a part of it and take advantage of it and all of that, like the ways that he manifests, I think are really interesting.
Yeah. And like watching him, like you feel for him, but also watching him abuse his power. Right. And realizing that separation. I mean, like in his last bender where like he's in the office and it's just him and all the white staffers, you're like, oh, okay. Like
when he starts talking, I think the kid's name's Dylan. I don't know why I remember his name and nobody else's. But when he starts being like propositioning him and like being like really sexually assaulty and or sexually harassing to him, and doing all this like, well, you get a day off if you let me give you a blowjob and lick your ass kind of thing. Really, it was so uncomfortable. Not that the rest of the show wasn't, but you're like, yeah, I don't know, whatever. I don't know what I'm saying about it, but his character I found really interesting and repulsive and interesting at the same time.
Who did you hate the most, Anita?
Shane.
Yeah.
Like I got to the point where I was like at home being like, just fucking go away. I hate you. And watching, so that is my visceral gut reaction is I hated Shane the most. I think that like Connie Britton's character may be one of the more insidious ones that like is like a really fucking, if we want to look at it like sociologically, I think that she may have been one of the worst, right? But they're all bad in some ways, right? Like I think with Shane, I just like I couldn't take it anymore, and watching his wife struggle with him and be like, why the fuck did you marry this guy? Right? Like, what is wrong with you? How did you get to this point in your life that you like married this guy? And then her coming back to him at the end, you're just like, I can't. So the tension of that I found the most uncomfortable of the dynamic of that relationship, but I don't know if he's the worst character of all of them. I will, sorry. I'm sorry. I'm being so all over the place in this podcast. For some reason,
you loved the show. You couldn't wait to talk about it.
In the last episode, for some reason, I ended up watching the extras of in this episode, blah, blah, blah. And the guy who plays Shane says that there's no absolute villain or hero. And I was like, go fuck yourself, dude. And then I read a review that also said no one is an absolute villain. I was like, is this the line that the creators put out there that everyone copied? Because I would argue these people are bad people and they are villains and they're not, there's no fucking nuance here. So the fact that some of these actors and the creators of this think that they might be, I'm guessing, creating a more nuanced portrayal, I'm like, that is not what you did. These are monstrous people.
In the break between the last episode and the penultimate, when I was going into it, I was like, I did remember the framing device, even though they never came back to it of who was murdered or whatever. And I was like, fuck. I know Shane's not the one because he's the only person we see, but I'm like, I would be totally fine with a bullshit, horrible twist where they're like, actually, he's the one who fucking wanted him to die so bad. Fall on your knife, buddy.
That would have been amazing. The person I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, Connie Britton is which character?
She's the mom.
Oh, okay.
Nicole Mossbacher.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, the exchange between her and the young journalist woman,
Rachel,
where she's gets mad at her for writing this puff piece or whatever. I was dying watching that interaction. Oh shit.
I'm telling you, just acting their asses off. And
the performance, like you said, the performances are amazing, but
I think Olivia was my most hated character. The daughter. I just found her so insufferable in that way. And God forgive me, I apologize to all of our young listeners, but in the way that kind of you can only be insufferable when you're 20 years old and you think you are so fucking smart, you're a sophomore in college, you've taken your second women's studies class, you are convinced that you've got this shit figured out, and you're just surviving on Ambien and iced coffee, and so convinced that everybody over the age of 25 is full of shit. She drove me around the bend.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Who's yours?
I was going to ask about the character who is the one who goes to the spa a lot and then dangles the money in front of the...
Jennifer Connelly's character?
Jennifer Coolidge.
Not Jennifer
She was the one where because there was a lot of this in the show, but her arc was the most money manipulation, and she talked about her mother using money to manipulate, and there's that line at the end which is so fucking painful when she's like, I just can't have any more transactional relationships in my life, as she pays to bring her new boyfriend to Aspen or whatever. And I was like, right, this one is the most I know this energy, and it's but yeah, she's not as vilified as Olivia. Olivia comes across as oh, you're an actual evil person at times, or they give her the lying in bed and then her eyes pop open, she's the watchdog.
Well, and it was that whole thing. So one, the stuff with that character and Natalie, I don't know I literally could not remember anyone's name, but the teasing, Natasha Rothwell's character, no, yeah. Am I getting names right? Jesus, fuck me. Okay. Sorry to all of our Christian listeners.
But to everyone else, fuck off, because this is the way it is every week. You know what you're in
I think
for.
I'm being a little extra all over the place on this one. But watching her, it was so real, right? It was so heartbreaking and hard and painful to watch her be I'm going to write this business plan. I'm going to spend a lot of time with this woman I don't like. I'm going to, whatever. And I just, from afar, exactly that this is a disaster. And watching it, you're like, one, you shouldn't get into business with this woman, even if she would let you get into business with her. But that's not where you're at, right, in life. And that was really challenging to watch her go through that process of really trying to, what's the word I'm looking for? Try to get this woman's financial support and backing. Then she didn't even she probably thought about doing it, but didn't think it was possible until this woman was like, hey, here, dangling the carrot in front of you, you know? And the conversation she has with her son on the phone, which is such a sweet, you're like, oh, they have such a sweet relationship. And she's so excited about that. It's so painful.
Especially after that, they appear to have a real connection. at the very beginning when like Tanya and Belinda first meet, and Tanya's, giving like the consultation and what was it? The cranial sacral, whatever. But anyways, they share that moment talking about grieving over their lost mothers. And so you can see someone like Belinda, like she's not new to this, right? If you're in any kind of customer facing job, customers habitually line step. They are always seeking to push those boundaries and like demand more emotional access from you than they have any right to, right? So I can see someone like her, a Black woman in this position of having to, like cater to the needs of different wealthy women week on week who are just asking for the world. In addition to asking for your services, also asking for your time and like your therapeutic, services and whatever, right? But to think like, oh, I bonded with this woman, like we shared a moment. Maybe, just maybe, this could be something, this woman could be legit. And then to have it all fall apart in the way that it does is extra just brutal.
Yeah, speaking of great performances, like the spa manager, like she really finds those moments to like, you can see in her eyes that even though we see these characters as like cartoon evil people, she's like, you see that connection. You see she's really trying to see the good and the humanity in this person and kind of help her because it is her career. And like, as much as she's being taken advantage of, she's trying. She's and it's so painful.
The Paula and Kai stuff.
Yeah.
So Kai represents like the stolen land, right? His family got displaced, and sort of Hawaiian natives versus like the tourism industrial complex that's happening. And so Paula is just like, oh, I didn't think about these things or know about any of these things and whatever. And so like, let me help you get money and let's steal these, like, my husband cheated on me $70,000 bracelets or whatever the fuck that shit was. And, I feel like there's a little bit of pulling Paula in as well, of being like, Paula's bad too, because she doesn't like, because she was talking him into doing that. She was like, steal from the rich, give to the poor, kind of blah, blah, blah. But then nothing, like she doesn't help him or support him or find any other ways to like do anything around it. Like it just kind of falls apart at the end.
Yeah. And ultimately she's able to leave the island and she's free, like, again, once more, we have someone who has got like no real stakes in the game. It's all abstract for all of these people, these conversations about, wokeness and about imperialism and colonialism and whatever. Like ultimately you can voice as many right on opinions as you want. But when it comes right down to it, who's the person who ends up dead, who ends up in prison, who ends up stuck in this same, job, catering to the same assholes, like nothing has changed.
Yeah. Grant, so this is not the point because this is not narratively dramatic and wouldn't put you in prison. But really when Kai got caught in the room, he should have been like, oh, I was here to check your toilet because we got a call that something was wrong in the in your room. And she would have been like, no, I didn't. He'd be like, oh, sorry, wrong room.
Do we want to talk about plot critique?
Yes. I love plot critique.
I was thinking about that too, because like obviously I was really rooting for Kai, and I was like, "Fuck, what's he gonna do? What could he do?" I thought of that too, but he already had the bracelets, so I was like, "Shit, he would have to get them back in the safe right away, because then they would have ID'd him right away." Like I guess,
or he could have just left him out, and she would have thought that she missed.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I just feel like putting on a fucking beanie and attacking someone is probably not the move. I don't know.
Anita, come to me when you worked 14-hour days, 6 days a week, catering to these people.
I did work at a hotel. I mean, not
That's
like
true.
that, but
That's
I did
true.
work at a hotel once, which is why I was thinking that, because I'm like, there's so many reasons an employee, a hotel employee, would be in a room.
Yeah,
it's shady for sure, but like there are so many ways around that.
Listeners, there's this weird thing going on where Anita is off camera. And so all I can see is our guest, which is great, but I just hear her voice coming in from the side and it's super weird. Thank you. Sorry, Teddy, you were saying something.
Oh no, that's a good note.
No, it's not. This is a disaster episode.
I'm like leaning over. No, love to participate. I wanted to jump back to the ending because one thing I did like, because I was so frustrated and it's like, fuck, this is just this immobile tableau and it's so painful to watch people not change. And I hope this was intentional, and I don't know if I was reading too much into it, but I did like that the only person who gets like a like, oh wow, change ending is the fucking son in the family who wants to go on the paddle trip. And it seems like the show, I hope it's the show being a knowing like, yeah, no one changes, and the only person who gets any change is of course the like a privileged, like the privileged white kid who's going to go and do this. And he's like, run away from his family. But you're like, they're going to like be sending him money. And he just gets to kind of like role play as someone who lives on an island. And it's going to be his like backpacking through Europe thing. And so like, you literally get like a paddling into the sunset, I think, of him. And I hope that was knowing that they were like, we'll put this infrastructure, but we're just really twisting the knife that no good changes.
God,
happening.
He was so insufferable too.
Ugh. I didn't hate him as much, and I should probably like explore why that is, like why I'm willing to, extend him a little bit more grace.
I think it's because he seems like the victim in that family unit. That's probably why. But
it's
really,
definitely part of it.
He like when he does talk, he's an asshole and says stupid shit about like cucks and stuff, and the whole conversation around like emasculating world, like he is. Right. He is 4chan. He is 4chan the kid, right? But there's not enough of him that we know that. And we just see his sister kind of bullying him most of the time. And then all of his devices get washed away. And you're like, oh, that does suck. Also, do you not know how the ocean works? I guess you don't know how it's
it was, they touched it. He was like a skimming stone across a lot of the topics, right? Because they kind of talked about like, him maybe being on the spectrum and him like stimming with the devices. And I was like,
did they?
Yeah, I was really sad for him when he lost the devices, but I didn't know what that was going to mean. And then I thought maybe they were doing kind of like a sexual awakening with him and the boat paddle men, like, cause I couldn't tell what like the long knowing glances they always gave him were. So I was curious, and they never like landed any of that. Maybe that was the idea with him, but yeah, he was a lot happened with him.
Yeah. I couldn't tell if we were, because they do set up that expectation that perhaps he's on the spectrum, right? But then the way that we know that is because his sister says he's stimming. Like she characterizes him in this way. All we see is him doing, like being all up in his phone and his devices and whatever. And I'm like, that in and of itself does not make someone, on the spectrum. He's in many ways, he's just like, I don't know. Look, like he doesn't really have a chance to turn out to be like a decent person with the family he has. But, given the family that he's with, would you want to spend time with them? I wouldn't either. My head would be on the phone all the time too.
I remember when I was a teenager and my parents were looking to buy a house and I had to go to these open houses with them. I just had a book with me the whole time. And I was literally walking around these houses reading a book. Like if I had a phone, because I didn't when I was young, like cell phones weren't a thing. Like I would just be on my phone too. So yeah, that just feels like teenager stuff of like, we're attached to our devices and I hate everyone around me and I don't even want to fucking be here kind of thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had that kind of like caricature in those families of where Olivia was like the performative woke, like I'm not my parents. He was the like, so much is being thrown at me. I mean, like, because he had the grandfather dying of AIDS thing was thrown at him by his father.
Oh, that I forgot about that.
Yeah,
God.
And then the father talking about him cheating on the mother, like, and he's just like, he's just shut. Yeah, that sort of like seeing the things where you're just like, I guess I'm just going to shut down because I have not been raised well enough to process these things and know what to do with them.
Oh my God, when the dad gets super drunk and he starts talking to his kid about cheating on his mom and like marriage sucks and they don't have sex anymore. And you're just like, dude, talk to your kids about sex, but like, this isn't what we mean when we say that.
Well, you knew it was going to be bananas when the show pretty much from the beginning opens with a Steve Zahn's prosthetic wiener. And I was like, the show is not going to be afraid to go there.
I just saw, I made a note that says balls and penis because HBO love this.
And then how quickly your opinion shifted.
No, I mean, just for that, like, I love the normalization of seeing, genitals on TV that aren't just, tits. You get to see boobs all the time, but you never see dick. Yeah. I want more dick on TV.
This is this episode. Yes, this episode, Rob has so many great pull quotes. I know you're gonna have trouble choosing.
And I know they've got a lot of excuses. Well, like our cinematographers aren't experienced, or like our gaffer doesn't know how to light a dick. And you're like, you got to get new types of people on set who know how to light a dick.
Right.
Oh
my gosh.
Not an
Okay.
excuse.
Anything else you want to talk about this?
No, but I'm willing to talk about it for much longer if you would like to, given how much you loved the show.
Oh my God. Okay. We'll be right back with some Freq Out.
What's up, FFR listeners? We've got so much great conversation coming your way this month on Feminist Frequency Radio. Why not sign up to get early access and bonus episodes? Oh, and help us keep making the show? Head on over to patreon.com/femfreak today and sign up.
Now it's time to talk about what's been thrilling us, moving us, upsetting us, or infuriating us this past week. Ebony, 2 weeks in a row. Holy moly.
Well, I feel like I've been slacking on the Freq Outs. Like I depended upon you and Caro to carry it for so long. But we should go to Teddy first.
Teddy can come in after.
Okay. I just, like
Go.
I like the guests to know that this is also their forum. Okay, so I spent the weekend in the pool, as I said, but also rereading a bunch of Love and Rockets. If you don't know Love and Rockets, the absolutely seminal underground comic by Jaime Hernandez, please check it out. It's about this multiracial, multi-ethnic, queer punk, just amazing group of people. It is, holy shit, the storytelling, the art. It's funny. It's devastating. It's so good. I think the first issue came out in 81. It's been around forever, although it's still occasionally being updated as far as I know. But it started off with this this kind of retro 50s kind of golden age of science fiction pulp vibe, but then became much more sort of, naturalistic, although there's still really awesome supernatural elements. The main characters are Maggie Chascarrillo, this Mexican-American woman, and her erstwhile girlfriend, Hopi, and just the wild cast of characters around them, but so good. Love and Rockets. You can find the what they call them, the combined editions, graphic novel form. But pick them up. You will not regret it. And then, of course, the whole Hernandez family is amazing artists and storytellers. So not only do you have Jaime Hernandez with Love and Rockets, but then also I think it's Gilbert Hernandez did the Palomar stories, which are also amazing. So, yeah, I'm freaking out about art and LA punk scenes of the 1980s. That's what I'm freaking out about, as written down in Love and Rockets.
Amazing.
Yeah,
I love that. Teddy, what are you freaking out about?
I'm so excited that you're recommending that because I'm not familiar with it, but it's literally gonna be my next read. I have I'll make a recommendation which is really similar maybe, and then I have more of a rant because it's which is On a Sunbeam by Tillie Walden, which is a graphic novel I just recently read, which is about multiracial found family. There's interesting queer characters, and it takes place in this.
I didn't like it.
Fantastic space. You didn't like it?
I tried reading it. I couldn't get into it.
What's it called again? On a Sunbeam?
On a Sunbeam.
I'm pretty sure. I tried really hard. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to.
No, I don't have as much detail to give because I'm not good with names or things, but I just find it to be a really beautiful kind of people supporting each other.
I'm gonna check this out.
It's a slow energy, but it's nice.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's not a lot. It seemed like a lot of people liked it, but my friend's partner was reading it and didn't like it and gave it to him to read, and he didn't like it, and then he gave it to me to read, and I was like, I'm not into this. So we just all bounced off of it really hard.
I promised to love it. So
great. Yeah, no, I mean, please, if it's up your alley. I mean, it seems like all of the things I would like. I don't know why. There was something about it that just didn't work for me, but I
gave it extra time at the beginning because I just love the visual style too. I love limited palettes, and its representation of space is really beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. Huh. All right.
So that's my rave. That's a good one. And then my rant Okay, so I don't really have a lot to. I don't even know what I have to say about this, but I have to be honest because Anita we're friends, and you know what I'm actually thinking and ranting about, which is I find myself back dating and dating apps, and so that's actually where I'm at, is like being frustrated with the design and approach of these systems and wanting them to like help people differently and help people differently, and I don't even know what I want from them. It just feels like there's so many. Text communication is already the worst, like anytime I have any friends or people I know who are in conflict, I'm like, cool, get this to voice, at least voice as quickly as possible. And then all of these ecosystems throw us together in the most, like it's already a confusing space and you never know what people are thinking. And you can say no to someone in some way, but you don't mean it in a full way. Like, I just want them to kind of like do more or be more playful and spend more energy beyond, I feel like they all are designed to, in addition to milking people for money, to get people to like match with one another. And then all the apps go, cool, our job is done here. And the best you've seen from many of them. I'm really glad they have, many of them seem to have pronouns now because that is helpful for me as non-binary person. But yeah, I just don't know what they're doing over there. And every once in a while, I know that, I think Tinder is based in LA. So every once in a while I'll run into like an engineer who works there. And I'll always be like, tell me about it. Like, what's the algorithm? What are you doing? And they're all like, not much. not much.
A lot.
Yeah.
Not a lot.
So I want for that. And then every once in a while when I get really incensed, I'm like, I'm switching careers. I'm going to help people.
I'm going to build a dating app.
But I'm also not I need like 90 different people around me who have better perspective than I do on some of those circumstances.
So can I ask, when you say that you would like something more than just the rudiments of matching people together and then that's it, what kind of thing do you mean?
I think so. I was on them briefly during pandemic as well, when a lot of or a couple of the apps took up like video date integration. They're like, okay, we're going to build this in because this is the safe way for people to maybe connect. And I personally found that like that was interesting to have kind of a middle ground, because I'm a person who's like terrible at leaving a bad date. Like I'll just like try to find interesting things, and I'm really bad at like walking away from something, or not walking away, but being like, this was great, but it's not for me. Like, have a lovely night. I know that's it's like cheesy, right? But like the concept of like ice breaking or guiding a conversation or something where you can help people engage with each other in a structured way that just says like, hey, we want to encourage you to sit down together for a minute and like have a human type conversation. And I don't know what that looks like, but it just seems like they just kind of throw you to the wind, or at best they go like, here's a wacky question that you both can answer. And I want to pull people along. I don't know.
We were talking about this yesterday. You had an idea that was good. Have we both forgotten it?
Did I? I'll give this 5 seconds.
Yeah, it was the thing. It was something I don't remember it anymore, but yeah.
Well, last week, Teddy, on the pod, we talked about how I was forced to go on a first date with a good friend of mine. Her first date with the man she ultimately married and subsequently divorced. But that's the point is, it was awful. But if you would like that service, I'm happy to come with you because I've done it before. So
You've
it's
never
not new
offered this to me.
Right, but I don't like you as much. Teddy gives me a good vibe. I want to help them find love.
I appreciate
so
you.
just be like, hey, this is Ebony. I just met her. And she's got like some questions in this hat, and we're each going to pick from it. And, we'll talk, and she'll give us some advice on what to order.
Oh
and
my
then once
God.
I see that things are like, going well, I'll just moonwalk out of there.
The questions, I couldn't even imagine what those questions
they're going to be
that Ebony
good. They're
would
going to
come
be
up
good.
with.
But then if the date is not going well, like if I'm not feeling like y'all are connecting, I will do the hard work for you of being like, this has been great, but you know what? I'm just not seeing it. I just don't think like it's working. It's all good.
I feel like maybe this is a service you should sell.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a matchmaking. It's like you make the match and I come in and I mediate the date for you.
Yeah. And like, I just take all of the pressure away, and I'll take the responsibility of, having to end things. So it's not awkward.
I could do that part. I'm so good at that part. I'd be like, we're done here. Bye.
I would want that to be like teach a they to fish, because I would like to be able to do that myself. It seems like a mature thing to be able to do.
Well, maybe like, after you see me do it a couple of times on your dates, you'll be like, okay, this is what she does, whatever,
I need a role model for this. Yeah.
I would not charge very much money. I'm going to give you a break. The first one will be free.
No, charge me a lot of money, please, for this.
Okay. I will also do that.
Cool.
This is going to be a great business for me.
Yeah. I just feel a lot of people like, you can also see in people's profiles, a lot of frustration around like failures in communication. And that is definitely has a lot to do with people being bad at communication. But as someone who's in that space and like I'm mask presenting, so I'm also like, I know I come in with a lot of privilege and safety in those things. And I'm like, I just want some entity or computer to come in and like guide an interaction that is a little bit richer. Because it puts the onus on people a lot. So like, because sometimes you match with someone and then you get to a profile and you're like, I just don't have anything to say here. And I don't want to be boring to this person or waste some time. But I'm like, I don't even know where to start. And I'm like, never have I been in apps or in real life, like whatever the fuck you like and not shitty, like a pickup line person. I have no way to be like, hey, what do you think? I've got a
What was that thing that like, do you want me to get you anything from Whole Foods? Wasn't that someone's line somewhere at some point? I forgot what that was.
Yeah, I don't remember if that was good.
I don't know. I've been out
I don't remember if it was good or bad either. I was like,
I don't know.
I feel like it was someone who may have gotten called out for some shit was their pickup line on apps. I don't remember. Anyways, I have no idea. I don't know how apps work.
I've got my 10,000 hours. I'm certain. It's very sad.
Speaking of Malcolm Gladwell.
Gross.
Yeah, well.
Did you match with Malcolm Gladwell?
What?
No, but that was his whole thing, 10,000 hours.
Yeah.
10,000 hours to become a master. He was the one who popularized that.
Which is bullshit.
Okay. So I know I've talked about American Hippo by Sarah Gailey when we had Charlie Jane Anders on, but I didn't actually do a proper freak out about it. So I'm going to do that now. American Hippo is a book by Sarah Gailey and it's delightful. It is about if in the sort of old timey, I don't actually know, but it was in the South in the past. If instead of cowboys, people rode hippos. Mm-hmm. And so you follow this like band of criminals who are like really good at their crimes that they do. And they're like pulling a heist. And then there are more things that ensue from that. So I like, it's a really like fun read with interesting characters. There's a non-binary character in it, which I really liked a lot. And I will say that like the only thing that got to me a little bit is like it kind of revels in the violence that makes sense for the careers of these people. And it makes sense in the context of like, these are like over the top caricatures of like these interesting, funny people, like interesting. The characters are very interesting and super like ranging. And so the violence makes sense in the context, but for me, I just kept being like, oh, that's a lot. There's a little bit of that happening. You know what I mean? Even though it tracks with the storytelling. Yeah.
Can you say more about that? You're talking about like it comes in turn with the
yeah,
the
like
job,
so like the characters aren't like these aren't like nuanced portrayals of human beings, right? It's just like, there's the one that's really good at murdering people, and there's the one that's really good at setting bombs, and there's the one that like whatever, I don't know, other things. So like, well, I don't want to spoil anything. So it is an extravagant over the topness to this story, and it's playful and it's delightful, and like everything is kind of a lot. And so the violence is also going to be a lot. And it's not like it's over the top, but it's just like, I just kept having these moments of like, oh, I just murdered a bunch of people. And that's what we're doing now,
Do you feel like the book knows that that's a lot, or do you think?
No, okay. I think that it's in line. I think it's my own, like, I suspect that the majority of people who read this didn't have that same reaction I had. So I'm not trying to turn anyone off by sharing that. I just remember having just a little bit of a like moment, but it didn't make me want to stop reading it.
Yeah.
And it didn't make me want to, it didn't like fully hurt my enjoyment of it.
It's interesting. I mean, I one of my guilty pleasures is heist movies, and I've like studied them a bunch, and often violence is used as a thing that's like startling, depending on the tone.
Yeah.
Like, because a lot of them are meant to be kind of like fun and, like
Yeah, exactly.
Playful. Yeah.
And I think that's when we do need to be mindful of critiquing violence, right? Is when it does just become like a fun, playful thing. And remember that violence is impactful and harmful and stuff. So I don't know. Yeah. American Hippo by Sarah Gailey. There's like 2 books in it, and I don't know. So it's stated like it's like 2 separate stories is what it sounds like, but it's actually not. And I think what happened, but I'm not totally sure, is that like they were written at different times and then compiled into this book, because you'll read like the first half and then there'll be an epilogue. And then I'm like, oh, that's done. I guess we're going to go into a new story, but it's just like sometime after the epilogue is the next story. So it's all the same characters in the same world. But I mean, it is based on like cow people, cowboys who ride and rear and train hippos, and the description of the hippos and the way that they have to like maneuver and like the riding patterns that happen, because hippos have to be in water, and like whether they're faster or slower on land or water and stuff. Like I just loved that detail. I thought it was really, really delightful. So
can I ask you a question? You've ridden horses before, right?
No.
One of the things I remember about the times that I rode a horse, which is like 2 times, is how broad a horse is. You know, that's one of the reasons why like your thighs hurt so much, right? Like if you're not used to it, how would you even ride a hippo?
I don't know.
I got to read this book.
I know. It's very interesting. And then there's the like riding with a saddle or without a saddle that comes into play. Yeah. Like, do you ride the hippo near the neck point? I don't know. But what's interesting is at the very beginning of the book, I thought that this was fiction. And then it literally says, this is not fiction. This is a true statement. Because there was a moment, I'm going to completely butcher this. I'm so sorry, Sarah Gailey, who is my favorite. There is a moment in history in which the government thought about bringing hippos in to eat the like overgrowth of some kind of plant that was happening. But that didn't end up happening. But so it was this imagining of what would happen if we did bring hippos into the American like ecosystem. And that's what influenced and inspired the story.
That's cool.
And aren't hippos kind of vicious too? Like aren't more people killed by hippos than, you know, sharks or whatever? I don't know.
There is one person a year that's killed by a shark attack.
Yes,
one person a year.
Hippos.
Hippos are probably worse. I think that they are. And so in the book, there's the wild feral hippos, and then there's the like there's the farm bred raised hippos.
That's cool. I love that. I mean,
it's delightful. Y'all need to read this book. It's so good.
Yeah.
It's like how there's like peacocks up in Los Angeles, and I think it's Pasadena. And I think that originated because like some movie studio imported a bunch of peacocks forever ago. And then just like when they were done, they were just like, well, let's put them in the woods.
Yep. There's a story in Vegas, just outside of Vegas, about why there's so many rabbits. It's like not sex, but Bunny Ranch is like a place where people just like dump their rabbits.
Oh gosh. Let's get Sarah Gailey on the pod to talk about the book. I have questions.
I would love to get Sarah Gailey on the pod now that they are the only person I talk about anymore. This is like the 4th episode that I've talked about them on. Anyways, and also Sarah Gailey wrote The Echo Wife, which I raved about weeks ago. So definitely check all that out. All right, Teddy, want to stay tuned and hang out with us for the bonus?
I do.
For those of you who are not cool enough to get the bonus.
Oh, why gotta be like that?
I know. Well, they can join the Patreon anytime, at any day, at any moment at patreon.com/femfreak. But until you do that, or despite doing that, or for the time being, Teddy, where can people find out about you and your game and anything you want them to know?
They can say hi directly. I'm on Twitter mostly, Teddy Dief, TEDDYDIEF. And then the project, We Are OFK, is OFK Band everywhere. So OFK BAND on Twitter and Instagram mostly, and Twitch.
Yeah, and you're streaming on Twitch, which is fun. The characters are streaming.
Yeah, Luca, our lead singer, is doing weekly game streams on Tuesday nights. So that's just a kind of a fun way for the band to keep in touch with people until the series comes out. So say hi.
Yeah, go check that out. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for listening to this show, this circus act. Tune in next week when we will be firing up the DeLorean and going back to the future with one of our genius friends, or possibly alone because our guest bailed last minute. So we can't trick anyone else to joining us. It's just going to be me and Ebony. Old school. What?
You doing Back to the Future?
Do you want to come back on for Back to the Future?
Fucking maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. Teddy might join us for that. This episode is a Patreon pick. They had a choice of time travel movies, and they picked the worst one, as they do. Our patrons pick the worst ones every time.
I don't understand how she keeps an audience by putting them down.
I don't either. I'm just saying.
Is great.
Is it?
It is great. Now there's some problematic shit in it, but
yeah. I wanted to watch one of the other ones. Well, we gave them a choice. They chose. I just feel like every time we give them a choice, they never choose the one I actually want to watch, which is fine because that's why we have Patreon choice episodes, because it's not what I want. It's what y'all want. See, I brought it back around. That's how I keep an audience.
Yeah.
Our show is engineered by Rob Pera. Carrie Stimpson provides technical support. Artwork by Jaime Varon. And our intro music is by Phil Circus. Thanks for listening and dealing with my nonsense. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.